Hello and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. My guest today is Dr. Lisa Petty. Lisa is living proof that knowing what is ahead of you can set you up for success. And this is why we have to talk to the younger generations so that they can have a smoother transition into later life. As we have said all along from the very first episodes in season 1, education is power. Lisa decided ahead of time that she was going to glide through perimenopause, and in this episode, she tells us how she did precisely that. She brings insight into increasing our intuition and reducing our stress, with simple, immediate strategies for getting out of our head and into our bodies. What I find really interesting is how she addresses the boredom of midlife. So listen in and discover how to transform something mundane and ordinary into something miraculous. Lisa, it is very lovely to meet you. Thank you for joining me today. Would you like to start by telling everybody a little bit about yourself, your background, so people get to know who you are?
Sure. Thanks so much for asking. Well, I have always worked as a coach with women. So I started about 20 years ago as a holistic nutritionist. Holistic nutrition means more than just food, right? It means how does everything work together in your body? And as I was approaching midlife myself, and I was looking at this prospect of my baby was looking at universities, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, my future is going to be an empty house and me. What am I going to do with that? So my own sort of midlife, what's going on here started at the same time that I started to notice that women my age who were my clients weren't doing the things that they said they wanted to do to take care of themselves, right? Things were getting in the way of women taking care of themselves. And I was like, okay, what has changed in the world? What's going on? Why are women not looking after themselves? Do I have skills gaps? Like, is there something that I'm not bringing to the table? So I decided while all of this was going on that I would go to university and get my master's degree. So as a midlife woman, I got my master's degree, and my focus was specifically eating, what goes on when women decide what to eat. And then the research bug bit, and I said, okay, let's figure out what gets in the way of women taking care of themselves completely, because well-being is more than just physical well-being, right? We have emotional, spiritual, mental, all of it. So I ended up doing a doctorate in applied health sciences with a focus on social and cultural health and an emphasis on understanding what gets in the way of women taking care of themselves. Long story short, fast forward the 6 years of schooling that was, I ended up just recently publishing a book based on my dissertation. And I'm sure we will get into it, but just sort of to hint at what I found out, the title of my book is Forget About Having It All.
Yes, which is incredibly engaging and pulls you in straight away because certainly I was born in the 70s and have been led to believe that women can have it all. In fact, we should strive for it all, whatever that might mean to each individual. First of all, then, coming back to Real Menopause Talk, whereabouts are you in terms of perimenopause or menopause?
I am hardcore menopause.
Hardcore menopause.
Hardcore. There is no question about where I am on my journey. I am definitely on the other side.
And how was it for you?
Okay, so I'm glad that you asked this question because we hear an awful lot about women who struggle and really suffer with their menopausal journey, the perimenopausal journey. And I have to say that I decided, because I was a holistic nutritionist, I knew what my future held. So from, the time I was 30, I knew things were slowing down, things were changing, right? Mid-30s, perimenopause can start whether you know it or not, or feel it or not, or whatever. So I made the decision in my mid-30s that I was not going to suffer. It was going to be a natural progression, a natural journey for me, and that I would do the best that I could to support my body through that natural transition. And I have to say, my mindset won. I really didn't have that many struggles. Honestly, I had my last period when I was 50, and that was it. It just stopped. So now for all the women who are, throwing things at the wall because I'm telling this story, like, oh, There. I certainly had a lot of preparation. I knew how to eat properly. I was already avoiding toxins in the beauty care products and the cleaning products and all of those things that can throw our hormones off. I was already conscious of the importance of proper sleep. And I was already taking nutrients to support detoxification of my liver, all of that. So I had been on the journey, as I said, for a long time. So now what I'm dealing with firmly in the menopause is I have sleepless nights for sure. I have nights when I can't turn my brain off. There is also that lovely menopausal middle that takes some time to figure out, because your body operates this one fabulous way your whole life. You've got it all sorted. You've got it, you know exactly what to do to get the results you want. And then suddenly all of that goes out the window. Mm-hmm. Right? And things just aren't happening how you would expect. So I am still working on a strategy to become fit. It's different now. My goal is not to fit into the hottest pair of jeans. My goal is to be healthy and strong, and looking towards my future, stay healthy and strong as long as possible. So those are some of the things that I'm still conscious of, and they do get some attention. We all know what it's like to get a crappy night's sleep, right? Mm-hmm. It just and then get 2 or 3 in a row, and and then that feeds into the weight gain as well. When you're not getting enough sleep, there's a pound, right? You miss a night of sleep, and the pants that fit you yesterday don't fit you today, kind of thing. So there is still lots to focus on in terms of health strategy. But I have to say, for the women who are younger and just sort of starting in on this journey, and also for women who are struggling, look at your mindset and your language and how you talk to your body about what you're going through. Because I think that, to really simplify it, we see what we're looking for. So if you're looking for it to be a rough go, it's going to be a rough go. If you're looking to have a bad day, you're going to have a bad day. But if you look at those days, wow, I had a great sleep last night. That was amazing. Or wow, I went 3 hours without a hot flash. Awesome, right? Just pay attention to those things. I think that we can make it less of a sort of mentally challenging time for us.
I have heard that mindset is absolutely key. And even little things daily that you might not notice, if you start talking about a certain brand of dog food, for example, suddenly it's everywhere because you're building those neural pathways. So when it comes to something more significant than dog food, like hot flashes, how you've slept, or your attitude towards how your day is going to go. I'm a firm believer that you can absolutely turn it around from feeling a bit crappy to actually making the most of what is there, definitely. How does that feed into not having it all?
Part of the whole experience for women, and again, I'm like you, I was in high school in the 70s, right? And graduated on the cusp of the 80s. And so I was raised with that mantra, you can have it all. You can have it all, baby. Sex, love, money. So there was a book that came out in the 80s, right? Called You Can Have It All. Sex, love, money. I can't remember all the rest of it. As you sort of suggested earlier, women were raised with this not possibility of having it all, but this expectation. You must go and have it all. You must get a good education, get a good job. You must have the most amazing partnership. You must have several children, 2.5, I think is what's required. You must have a couple of dogs and a cat. You must have a beautiful mansion and a summer home, and everything has to be spotless. And not only that, you have to look good all the time. So you better be in the best fashions. And just on and on and on, all of these things that we can have became an expectation. We were never asked, hey, what do you want? What do you want? I know for me growing up, on the one hand, I talk about this in my book. My mother was like, oh, you should go be a stewardess. That's what they were called in the 70s and 80s. You should go be a flight attendant. And I think she had a bit of an escapist fantasy, right? You could just get away. And then at the same time, she's saying that to me. My father is saying, I made dinner because that was one of my chores. And he was like, oh, you're going to make somebody a great wife one day. And I'm like, well, okay, how do I do that? So while we were told, hey, go out and do all these amazing things, nothing's holding you back. We had no mentors. Nobody said, hey, you can't. You can't, right? Because at the same time that you're supposed to be building this amazing career in your 20s and early 30s, that's when you're supposed to be procreating. Because when you get into your late 30s and 40s, that's off the table. So we have biology fighting against these social expectations on us. And nobody said, whoa, wait a minute, maybe not. dial it back. Maybe instead focus on what do you want. So how this sort of all comes together with menopause and perimenopause is the fact that when we're young, we're going through this generative stage and this building and building and building, which is what's required when you're young, right? You're in this growth phase. You get to perimenopause and the menopausal transition, things have changed. You might be out of your second or third career. You might be out of your second or third marriage. Your children, if you had children, they're probably leaving home or, have left home. And suddenly there's this huge void in your life and nobody's telling you what to do anymore. There's no
Yeah.
programming to say, oh, well, you're supposed to be doing this now because you did all
Oh,
those things.
but there is. We're supposed to drop off a cliff because we're not
That's
important
true.
anymore. Yes.
It's true. So there's the challenge. The programming that is for us now is go away,
Hmm.
right? Go away, be invisible. We don't want to hear from you.
Hmm.
So that's the social programming that's fighting against this inner knowing that we have. I call it the stirrings that come about at midlife when we're like, no, wait a minute. I finally have space in my life, even if I'm going through this perimenopausal transition or the menopausal transition, I have space in my life. The me that I put aside when I was 15 is starting to say, hey, it's my turn now, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know what I want to do. I don't have, I'm not sure what it all means, but I'm having these stirrings, right? And I know when I look ahead, I have less time ahead of me than I do behind me. We start to think about legacy and what we're going to leave behind. And so it's this really poignant time in our lives. And yet, as you suggest, there's this social programming is go away, honey. We don't want to hear from you anymore. You've got gray hair now. Just quietly fade into the woodwork. And yet we have this hope and this energy around doing something valuable and important in our lives. And the having it all bit is very oppressive. So as we're raising the children and trying to get the career going and all of that kind of thing, and suddenly now our bodies aren't cooperating, we don't know how they're working anymore. While all of that's going on, and this is really interesting because when we were young growing up and women were being told, hey, you can have it all, honey, go have it all. Nobody pulled the men aside, the young men, to say, listen, the world is changing now. And how your parents did things is not going to work. And so you can't have a partner who's out in the world working as hard as you do, who then comes home and raises your family for you while you sit on the couch. And you ask her what's for dinner. So nobody told the men. And so that became a challenge. And I love men, so I don't want people to think I don't love men. But they were given a raw end of the deal too, because nobody told them. Mm-hmm. Nobody told us that things were changing. Nobody told them that things were changing. And there's the conflict, right? All of us who tried to have relationships with men who are like, I don't know, you wanted a job, didn't you? Not sure I did, but and I'm not saying that women didn't want to have careers. Lots of us do, but just that pressure. Have it all, honey, have it all. Well, have it all means do it all for women. So we get overwhelmed. And that's, I think, part of the reason why we don't have the space to figure out this perimenopause and menopausal transition, because there's nothing left. We have no energy. At the end of the day, just let me pour a glass of wine. I almost said bottle of wine. Let me pour a glass of wine and just veg in front of the TV because I've got nothing left. And then because you've made that choice, you're not going to sleep that night. You're going to get up in the morning. You're going to feel tired and grumpy, and there you go again. So it's like this big bowl of spaghetti. It's all related.
It is such a common theme. I've met some of the most dynamic women through the podcast. They are all intelligent, powerful, interesting, interested, gorgeous and glamorous women. And the challenge seems to be universal, that you reach a certain point or often and go, well, what do I do now? Or how do I do it? What do I even want? Just like you said, I'm not sure anybody even asked us, what do you really want?
Right. Well, yes. So women aren't encouraged. And this is sort of a cultural thing too, but women specifically are not encouraged to really turn in and reflect and listen to their own soul's guidance, to, their own intuition. In fact, we are told, stop listening to your intuition, stop being emotional, right? Mm-hmm. You can't function as an emotional being. Well, that's the masculine energy, right? The masculine energy is this idea of logic and reason and brain. Not to say that men don't have emotion and instinct and intuition, they do. But when you're talking about energies, we've been told for decades, just be in your masculine energy. Just do it, just do it, just do it. So even the things that are innately feminine energy, like intuition and feeling and emotion and just knowing and connection, all of those things that help women thrive, we've been told, don't do that. Don't do that. So that's a challenge too, right? We get to a place where we're like, well, wait a minute, I'm feeling things and I don't know what it means. Or, I can't think my way out of this one. I can't think, well, no, you can't, because this is not a logical problem that you're having right now. This is an emotional, intuitive, feminine growth, expansion thing that's happening in your life. It's not a logical one. You're not going to solve it with the same skills and strategies that got you into it.
I signed up to your mindful minutes back in December, which you send through to everybody. And I thought, well, how can I not have a minute? And I have to confess that during December, I saw the emails. I would either open them and then go, I'll do it later for 1 minute. All you are asking is 1 minute. I'll do it later. Or I would just go, not today, not today, not today. But that was the craziness of December that I feel many people experienced.
Right. Yes.
I've started opening them and paying attention, and they are revolutionary and revelationary all at the same time in their simplicity and the way that they can tap into a positive mindset and that intuition that you're talking about for 1 minute a day. How else can you help a woman approach the intuition? Because I do feel it is our superpower that needs to be allowed to express itself.
Yes, because we've let the masculine energy steer the world, right, for hundreds of years. It's time for us to take over, right, and go back to feeling and intuition and let the women have a chance. So I'm glad you brought that up about the mindful minutes. And you had sort of alluded to it earlier, though you didn't call it by name, the reticular activating system of the brain. And that's what traps you into the way that you think and way you perceive the world. Mm-hmm. So those mindful minutes are designed to get you to expose you to ideas that aren't your own, right? And they come from a place of love. And I'm not trying to manipulate. They're just like, hey, have you thought about this? Or what if you did this for a minute? So it's really about opening your perception beyond your own imagination, which I know this might sound really woo. And I have to say, I have a doctorate in real science. But I also believe in sort of the intersection between research and woo. And there is research that shows that we have intuition. There is research about the reticular activating system. If we can move beyond our own perception and expose ourselves to amazing things beyond our own belief system, then we'll open up the doorway to new ideas. Well, who can I be then? How can I be then? What can I bring to the world? What can I create? So doing something like that, doing something like the mindful minute is a really good first step, particularly for women who are like, what is she talking about? It's a minute. I'm specifically trying to help women get out of our brains. Like, listen, I have a doctorate. I have lived in my head for a decade and I'm happy there, but I see that it limits me. Mm-hmm. Right? I have seen that logical, precise, critical way of being has limited me and in some ways has pushed me off into a corner. So my personal goal is to get out of my head and into my body. And as I get into my body, I'll start to feel again. I'll start to feel joy and gratitude and love and all of those emotions that are part of our intuition. So getting back into the body is really critical for building intuition. So what does that mean? That means acknowledging that you have a body. Your body doesn't stop at your neck, right? It goes all the way down. So doing things like getting out in nature and when you can, take your shoes off outside, stand on the ground because the earth gives off a frequency that helps to recalibrate us. So when you can get outside, do that. But even something simple like just rubbing yourself or getting some lovely hand cream and giving yourself a hand massage. So for women, what this is going to do is stimulate the hormone oxytocin, which is the love hormone and the bonding hormone. And for women, it's the hormone that helps to reduce stress, that cortisol, right? The stress hormone, which is part of the problem with the weight gain and part of the problem with not sleeping at night and the snappiness and all of that. So doing things like that, just rubbing on hand cream and feeling that, and be conscious of rubbing your hands together and touching your fingers. So increasing your oxytocin, but also just being aware of being in your body. So anything you can do to get into your body is a beautiful first step for opening up to your intuition again.
The other thing that you describe yourself as is a midlife alchemist, which I absolutely love because it suggests the intersection between science and woo. Can you tell us more about that too, please?
I would love to. And it's funny because I called myself that one day and I went, oh, are people going to get that? But alchemy is just transforming something mundane and ordinary into something miraculous. And who doesn't want to do that with your own life, right? So here's the challenge. One of the things that happen when we get to midlife is that we can be bored. Mm-hmm. Like life is a drag. We've had all of our first kisses, our first loves, our first babies, our first marriages, our first, what is exciting? We get into this real, the grind of it. And we're thinking, oh my God, I've got 4 more decades of this, 5 more decades of this. Ugh. And so rather than being in that, what if we took that mundane, boring existence and actually created something fabulous with it? Took the opportunity to transform something mundane into the life you always wanted and never gave yourself permission to create. And so I like to help women do that. First of all, giving women permission. You know what? It's your time. It's time. It's time for us to stand up. Gloria Steinem once famously said that an army of gray-haired ladies is going to quietly take over the world, and it's time. It's time. Not that I have gray hair yet, though I am embracing it and allowing the sparkles to come in now. I want women to understand that they have a lot and they bring a lot to the world. And even if all they want to do is become confident in who they are and how they move through the world, I'm not saying you have to become a rock star. I'm not saying you have to, be a leader of the army. But even dropping a pebble in the water creates ripples that move out, right? So as women, if we can be confident in who we are, what we want, what our boundaries are, what we'll say yes to, what we'll say no to, and can mentor that to the people around us, our daughters, our granddaughters, our sons. Men got left out of this whole, we see what's going on in the world. They're getting a bad rap. They need support too. And I'm not saying tell men what to do. I'm saying if a woman is standing in her power, that can only create positive ripples for everyone around her, including the men. And the men will say, well, wait a minute. I want to stand I want to be me. I want to start following my heart. So I think that's really critical. So I love to give women permission to do that and then give them the tools. Let's practice doing this. Let's practice getting out of your head. Let's use our imagination. And if there were no obstacles, what would you do? And then, of course, we get into a little voice in the back of our head saying, yeah, but that won't work for me. And so working through those mindset bumps that will always come up too.
The seeking permission, the making yourself small, I suppose, imposter syndrome as well feels very familiar to a lot of people. So getting past that must be very hard. Where do you start?
Well, first of all, is giving yourself permission, right? You have, and mean it, not just say the words, yeah. I hear this a lot. Women talk the talk. I used to have a health talk radio show, and it was called A Health Radio That Walks the Talk. Because we say a lot, right? We say a lot. Oh, yeah, self-care is so important. Really? Then why did you just agree to do something that you have no time, energy, and interest in doing if you say that self-care is so important, right? Mm-hmm. We pretend. And that's part of the issue too. And this came up in my research. I called it story keeping. We hear a lot about, we're storytellers. We learn from storytelling. Women are awful storytellers. We are story keepers. We hold back. We don't share the struggles. We don't share the difficult stuff. We don't share the messiness, the bloodiness, the difficult things. And yet, when we withhold all of that information and wisdom, who wins? Our daughters don't win. Our sons don't win. We don't win. And so instead of being story keepers, I really want women to start telling your stories. And I don't mean moan and complain. And I don't mean be a victim. I'm not like, whoa, woe is me. This is the worst thing ever. No, that's not helpful either. No one wants to be around that energy, and it's not helpful for us. But to be able to say, listen, this is a potentially difficult thing that you've decided to do, and I support you 100%. Here's what I did that worked. Here's what I would do differently next time. Reach out if you need support. That's the kind of thing that we need to be doing for each other. So enough of these, sugar-coated self-care memes and that kind of stuff. Self-care isn't lollipops and manicures. It's dirty. It's selfish. It's exhausting in the sense of, holding firm your boundaries. But once you get in the rhythm of it, it's the most empowered and empowering thing that you can do for yourself.
If you can demonstrate that and role model it for those around you, then that automatically gives the permission that everyone continues to seek to do the same. So then we can respect each other even more and each other's boundaries. What is the greatest thing that this whole life phase and transformation has taught you?
Oh my gosh, there are so many things, and every day there's something new. I think it shocked me how much I allowed things outside of myself to control my experience. I would love for women to be aware of things like what you're watching on TV, the what you're listening to on the radio, even the music that you listen to. And when you hear repeated messages, I think it is to take away our power. Right? So be very conscious of messages that you hear over and over again. So one of them is, right, you can have it all. Who wins in the scenario that has women so exhausted they can't even think straight and they can't think about what they need, right? We have this culture that's all about buying things, having more, creating more, working, just keep working because now you've paid off that house. Now you need to go get another one. So just really being aware of the things that come from outside you that you never questioned before. For me, that was the key. The first one was this idea of who says we can have it all? And why am I in this hot pursuit of having it all when really I would like X, Y, Z instead?
Mm-hmm.
And then once I got into that sort of energy of, hey, who said that was right? Then I started to think, well, who said that's right? And who said that's right? And so just really becoming more of my own, figure outer, right? I don't know what the word is, but figuring out myself what works for me. That was the big one.
One final piece of advice to anyone who is searching or deeply wants to find their passion in midlife.
Oh, just one thing. I'm going to say this might poke some people, but you already know what it is. Give yourself permission to pursue it. And if you need support, support is there. It might not be your family and friends. In fact, it probably isn't going to come from your family and friends. They want you to stay exactly how you are. And it comes from love, but it also comes from fear because if you become awesome, things are going to change for them, right? So that would be it. You know what you want. You need to admit it and find some support to bring it to life.
Lisa, thank you for all your wisdom. Where can people find you?
My website is lisapetty.com, and please sign up for the Mindful Minutes. I'm so grateful to hear that that they are helpful and working for you because I do put intention behind creating those. I also have a free download there called the Wellbeing Check-In, and that's for women, again, who need a little bit of practice getting back into their body and becoming aware of how they take care of themselves or not. So those discrepancies there. And of course, I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Dr. Lisa Petty, Dr. Lisa Petty, just to keep it super simple. And I have a Facebook group called Midlife Alchemy. So if you would like to join there for conversation, trainings, that kind of thing, please do.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, you as well. Bye now.
Take care. Bye. Details of where to find Lisa will also go in the show notes. Follow us on the podcast app of your choice, wherever you choose to get your podcasts. And I have one request of you today. Please could you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts? It helps to send people in our direction. They know where to find us, and it helps push us up the list, which is always a good thing. As ever, thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.